Hello everybody, welcome to an extraordinary scene. The fog descends on Fuji Motor Speedway and we're about to get a Grand Prix underway. Well, 31 years ago, here at Fuji, in similar conditions, Britain's great hope, James Hunt, started from the front row of the grid and got the job done, winning the World Championship for McLaren. Today, Lewis Hamilton walks in James Hunt's footsteps. He's gone one better by grabbing pole position, and although he can't win the world title today, victory, and especially finishing ahead of Fernando Alonso, would move him a decisive step closer to clinching the world title at his first attempt. It's all about reversing the momentum that Alonso has built up in the last 3 races, in all of which Hamilton has dropped points to the Spaniard. He's now just 2 points ahead with 3 races remaining. Well, yesterday in qualifying he struck a decisive blow in treacherously wet conditions. The key was to get a mistake-free lap, and although Alonso set faster sector times than Hamilton during the course of the qualifying session, he didn't do it all on one lap. Whereas Lewis managed to put his best 3 sectors together, a nice clean lap, grab pole by 7/100ths of a second. His 5th pole position of this 2007 season. But it's on days like these that things can go very badly wrong and the form book can get thrown out of the window. We've already had 2 completely crazy races this year, in Montreal, Canada, and of course Nürburgring in Germany. And I reckon we're in for a 3rd one here. These will seem like the longest 67 laps of Lewis Hamilton's career. One man who plans to take advantage of the potential chaos and who has a lot of fuel in his car and a good wet setup in the Honda is Jenson Button, and you'll see right there, 6th on the grid, is the man who won last year in wet conditions in the Hungarian Grand Prix, and a lot of people fancy him today. If he can get a good clean start, the front runners, the front 2 rows, the 2 McLarens and the 2 Ferraris, we believe will be stopping twice, and everybody possibly from Heidfeld backwards, but certainly from Button backwards, stopping just the once. Those guys can pose a serious threat to the front runners here this afternoon. Of course, we are going to start this race behind the safety car. That is an advantage for Lewis Hamilton because there'll be less of a challenge for him going into the first corner from Alonso. You can see the second half of the grid there. David Coulthard is in 12th place. I spoke to him this morning. He had various different plans in mind. Antonio Liuzzi is shown as 14th. In fact, he's going to start this race from the pit lane. Anthony Davidson down there in 19th spot. And the 2 Japanese drivers at the very back of the grid, Sato and Yamamoto. We may well, Martin, go 2 hours rather than 67 laps, depending how long the safety car stays out for at the start. But you need a clear head for a day like this, but you cannot avoid the kind of chaos we often see in these situations. That's
a day to survive, no doubt about it. Go fast, don't crash will be the final instructions they'll get. How long the safety car is out will be very pivotal to many of the drivers and teams' strategies this afternoon. The front 4 on the grid at least are relatively light on fuel as they were fighting each other for the front 2 rows yesterday, and that's very difficult for them now. They weren't able to do a few reconnaissance laps to feel how the track was because they really had to save fuel and go straight to the line. Others, those from P11 backwards, can put any amount of fuel in they want, so they can fuel longer and wonder or guess if there's going to be a safety car period to an extent, and also give themselves a much bigger window if the track ever does come to those intermediate tyres, which are much faster as long as there's not too much standing water. Looking out of our commentary box window, turn 8 disappeared about 2 minutes ago in the fog. It's clear again now, so the mist and fog is drifting across the racetrack, and I think the race director Charlie Whiting will be listening to some of the drivers, talking to his safety car driver Bernd Mailander, who's also a racing driver, to get a feel for just how wet the track is. And sometimes in these conditions the safety car can be faster than the Formula 1 cars.
So this first Japanese Grand Prix at Fuji for 30 years, going to start behind the safety car. The last time we had a Grand Prix starting in that situation was at Brazil back in 2003, if you remember. So it's been a while since we've had such treacherous conditions, but everybody out there is a professional, particularly the safety car driver, and no one's going to take any unnecessary risks.
Antonio Liuzzi, who qualified with a dry setup yesterday, has elected to go into the pit lane, or start from the pit lane in the Toro Rosso with the full wet setup, and his teammate Vettel, who is 8th on the grid, had that wet setup. I think, James, the drivers who are going to be struggling out there are the Ferrari boys. They've got less downforce than McLaren. They had 5 kilometers an hour more straight line speed, and we've seen Ferrari off the road all through the wet practice and qualifying, and even Raikkonen going off the road on a slow lap to the grid.
We saw the sign saying pit lane open, and that's because under safety car conditions, when the green lights go on the starting gantry and the safety car drives away, the race is actually underway. So we are now counting down the laps. There is no formation lap behind the safety car, if you like. Sorry, there is no formation lap here for this race. We are now under race conditions. So, as I say, the clock is counting down, and at 1 minute 58 and 45 seconds to go before the race finishes, and depending on how long this safety car stays out, I say we might actually end up hitting the 2-hour barrier, at which point the race will be finished. There is also another consideration, which is if they have to stop the race, if the rain gets very heavy later on, as long as they've done 75% of the race distance, then the drivers will be awarded full points for the race. So hopefully we won't get into any of that. Hopefully we'll be able to get a decent race going together, and everybody following behind the safety car. They've got to stay no more than 5 car lengths apart according to the regulations. That's what it looks like in Kovalinen's cockpit. Just watch the water there. It's coming seeping down the sides like a miserable holiday in Scotland on a rainy day. But water pouring in down the sides and going into the back of Kovalinen's overalls.
I'm finding this difficult to believe, but apparently the Ferraris are on what I call the intermediate, the wets rather than the extreme wets. They're obviously expecting the safety car to be out a long time.
So the cars coming across the start-finish line for a curious start to this Japanese Grand Prix. But as you say, Martin, Ferrari clearly thinking that the safety car will be out for a long time. And all the time, the driver of it, Bernd Maylander, and the experienced drivers in particular, will be communicating back to not only their own teams, but to the race control as well, giving them their impressions. You were always someone that they like to listen to in these sort of situations. What would you be looking for?
Well, it's the standing water is the only thing. I mean, and why the drivers all look so nervous on the grid. There's an element of these conditions that you're completely out of control with it. And we've got a Ferrari off already, aquaplaning off the road. The race is underway. He won't be now allowed to repass, but if they are on those intermediate tyres, they're completely crazy. He's spun off in the standing water I was just talking about, and that is the lottery of these conditions, Ted.
Yeah, but not only are they completely crazy for that reason, Martin, but also because Charlie Whiting told all the teams about 20 minutes before the start that if there is a safety car start, they have to start the race on extreme wet tyres, because he wants to rule out any teams sort of trying to throw a crafty one and start on intermediates and gamble that the safety car's going to stay out for so long. They might as well, because it might be a dry track by then. And he said anyone who starts on anything other than extreme wet tyres will get the black and orange flag, which means effectively your car is unsafe, come into the pits.
Absolutely right. Charlie's saying, okay, if you want the safety of the safety car, that means conditions are very extreme. You've all got to run the deep groove wet. So, and also Massa has repassed the car, and I don't believe you think he's allowed to do that behind the safety car?
Yes, you are. As long as you don't get left completely behind, you're allowed to do that. It's interesting, Ferrari apparently did the same thing back in Malaysia 2001, started a very, very wet race on intermediate tyres, and did the same thing. So obviously they've thrown the dice, remembering that particular incident, and they got away with it on that occasion.
Well, they're trying to warm those intermediates up, but I think that's a staggering decision that they've taken there. And imagine when they're at speed. Okay, at speed you've got more downforce, but you can actually just fly off the road in a straight line at 150 miles an hour. And now Massa pits for presumably the full wets.
Ted Kravitz.
It is for full wets. They've clearly been told by Charlie Whiting, no boys, don't you try this. Come on, before I give you the black and orange, this car is dangerous flag, come in. Also, because Felipe Massa finding out there's absolutely no grip, so well, that scuppered his race.
And his championship. He needed the other cars in front of him all not to finish and for him to win today, but from now where he is, he cannot of course overtake. He is now at the back of the queue for when this race starts, and with the amount of field spread we're going to get in these wet conditions and this tight twisty rear end of the circuit as well, Massa is going to be a long way behind after just a handful of racing laps. So we're under the safety car. We haven't unleashed them yet here in Fuji for this Japanese Grand Prix. Safety car making its way around. Looks like the amount of water coming off the front of that safety car. It really is more like a boat than a car. And there is Anthony Hamilton. I spoke to him just about an hour ago, and he said he was far more nervous on a day like this than he is on any other kind of day. Lewis has won a lot of big races in wet conditions, but I'm sure as a father you really do worry much more on a day like this than any other day. Having said that, it's a pretty safe circuit, Fuji.
Not getting any fire, okay? Or getting worse, actually.
Understood. Conditions are getting worse.
Well, you heard it for yourself. That is Raikkonen diving into the pit lane, and he too is being forced to make a stop. He goes on to the same tyres now as the two McLarens are on at the front of the grid. Look at the difference in the grooves. Shallow grooves coming off, deeper grooves going back on. That's the tyre everyone else is on. This is the Japanese Grand Prix from Fuji, the first time from 30 years that the event has come here, and we're under the same kind of conditions that we saw back in '76 when James Hunt won the World Championship. It's pouring with rain, and we've started the race behind the safety car, and we just heard Heikki Kovalainen telling his team that the conditions are actually getting worse out there rather than better. You can see that everybody's having trouble. The two Ferraris started behind the safety car on intermediate tyres, as we used to call them, as the British don't call them wets now. They're the shallower grooved tyres, and both Felipe Massa and Kimi Raikkonen have had to come into the pits and change to the extreme wet that everybody else is using. So both of the Ferraris are at the back of the train behind the safety car. Great news for the two McLaren men, but we've still got a long way to go in this race.
Yeah, the McLaren appear to be clearing the water reasonably well. That is one of the craziest decisions I think I've ever seen, to put intermediates on those Ferraris. We know they're already a bit skinny on downforce given their straight line speeds in qualifying, and quite clearly they were taking a massive gamble on it drying up, the safety car being out for a while. Well, the safety car is out still, but it's raining very heavily out there. As you said, Kovalainen in the Renault reporting back, it's getting no better. If anything, it's getting worse. But even at these speeds, they're struggling to hang on to the racetrack.
Well, we saw the Ferraris taking on fuel when they took the tyres on, so they definitely will have switched now into a one-stop strategy. And depending on how long this safety car comes out, the two McLarens were going to have to stop twice. I imagine their first stops were going to be, in normal conditions, around about sort of 20 or 22 laps into the race. It's a question for them now as to whether if the safety car stays out long enough, they too might be able to just make the one stop if they are able to come in perhaps 27 or 28 laps into this race if they've got a big enough fuel tank. So that'll be a calculation the engineers will be making frantically with every lap they turn behind the safety car.
Yeah, they'll be saving probably around half a lap per lap behind the safety car of fuel. And the advantage Ferrari have now, of course, they are fueled up, but with this amount of spray, the field spread at the end of the first lap of action, if we actually do get underway without a safety car, they're going to be 40 seconds behind the McLarens at the end of the first flying lap of racing.
In addition to which, they've got to actually make their way past all the cars, so they have to take risks to make any kind of progress. And of course, that is very, as Jean-Pierre Sarti said in the film Grand Prix back in '66, risks are always risks. Ted, what have you got?
I think Ferrari are just going to have to claim that they didn't know about this order from Charlie Whiting. They can't be so silly as to deliberately disregard it, James. They must say that, well, maybe we were doing other things, I don't know, but you would expect the team manager to have had that communique from Charlie saying that if it starts under a safety car, you must start with extreme wet tyres. They can't just claim ignorance on that one. But anyway, we'll wait and see after the race. But the drivers still, as you heard from Heikki Kovalainen, drivers still reporting to their team managers that these conditions are getting worse. It is raining much more heavy in the pit lane where I am now, but just the provisions for that. Team managers can then tell Charlie Whiting it's getting worse. He can then stop this race. He can red flag it, in which case everybody will go back to the grid and they'll start again when the conditions improve.
Well, that sounded like Jenson Button saying this is too dangerous to me. I couldn't quite hear what he said, but it was sounding pretty urgent anyway. He's clearly not happy.
Well, of course, the driver's visibility is the same as this camera. Their visors are the same as the camera lens, and that's how much the driver can see. Plus, you get a lot of fogging in these conditions inside your visor too. And Button was saying it's impossible to see when you're going around. And well, we can understand that, can't we, from these shots? But they're doing 2 minutes 13 behind the safety car. What were they doing? 1 minute 40 would be a hot lap at the moment in these conditions. So they've got to try and go something like half a minute faster when they're released from behind that safety car, which I don't see happening anytime soon.
Two McLarens then at the front of the field. Lewis Hamilton, certainly one of the greatest tests of his season so far. He's faced adversity before, but this is such an awkward moment for him in this championship, with Alonso, the momentum all being with him over the last 3 Grand Prix. He managed to get in front of him on the grid. It's finishing in front of him this afternoon is so critically important to Hamilton's championship, because the next 2 races we rather think that Ferrari will possibly have the upper hand in China and Brazil, so it'd be nice for the McLaren drivers not to have to worry about what the Ferraris do, just to concentrate on each other. And if Hamilton can get an extra point or 2 advantage over Alonso going into those 2 races, it could make all the difference when we come to the final race in Brazil. Well,
that tyre choice might be critical. If this race is run, it's got to go to 47 laps before it gets to a full point scoring situation, 75% I believe of the race distance. If this race is run under safety car conditions, and at the moment I can't see any alternatives unless it actually stops raining, then Ferrari of course will score no points stuck at the back there. They can't overtake under the safety car and regain where they felt their position should be. So it'll be. I actually think the McLarens will be better in Brazil. It's bumpy, you've got to use the curbs a lot more in Brazil, but I do see the Ferraris being strong next weekend in Shanghai, and we've got a Ferrari off again, but that's on full wets.
Yeah, and it's down at turn 10 under braking there. Kimi Raikkonen is behind Felipe Massa now, absolutely last in the chain.
Well, for sure, we saw the Ferrari off the road more than anybody in the wet conditions yesterday. So whatever their setup must be a little bit knife edge. The car's fast, but we sense it just keeps catching the driver out. I suspect what it is Raikkonen testing out where the track is at the moment. And he's found out it isn't anywhere. He was floating along the top of it.
Yeah, it's just turning into the right-hander at turn 10 that he had his moment. But, well, Fuji wasn't very kind to Ferrari. Back in '76, we've been telling the story of James Hunt, of course, winning the World Championship. It was Niki Lauda in the Ferrari he was racing against, and Lauda didn't fancy conditions like this, and he parked it right at the very beginning of the race. So, 31 years on, Lewis Hamilton is still at the head of the chain, in front of his teammate Alonso, the defending world champion, behind the safety car in the rain here at Fuji. Raikkonen. So both Ferraris have had a moment already. behind the safety car. One worries for them slightly when we go under full race conditions. If we ever do get under full race conditions here. The car obviously quite jerky in its responses, and it's quite a handful for the drivers. Looking very, very good indeed for a possible podium, and maybe even better. Mark Webber 5th, Vettel, German driver in the Toro Rosso, 6th in the queue, 7th is Kubica, 8th Fisichella, 9th Kovalainen, and in the top 10 David Coulthard. Had 6 laps now under the safety car, no sign of it coming in. Look at the spray down the main straight. Japanese Grand Prix from Fuji Motor Speedway, and here's some team radio from Ralf Schumacher.
Above 100 kph, you can't see the hand in front of your eyes. I mean, it's unbelievable. Complete madness to continue in a moment.
Complete madness to continue at the moment, says Ralf Schumacher, one of the most experienced drivers in this field. If you're just joining us, this is one of those strange days in Formula One that you'll remember for a long time, one of those weird races. We've started behind the safety car, 7 laps have already gone. Lewis Hamilton is at the head of the field, in front of Fernando Alonso, that's grid order, but 3rd is Heidfeld and 4th is Jenson Button, because the 2 Ferraris started initially behind the safety car on the shallow grooved wet tyre, which they were forced to replace very early on. They are at the back then of the field. It's a great opportunity for Jenson Button, if they do get this race started from 4th place, to do something here this afternoon. But as you can see, the conditions are very, very bad.
McLaren are going to be nervous here, I think, because Regulation 6.5 says no points will be awarded if the leaders completed less than 2 laps, so that's over. So we're now into a half-point situation if we don't get to 75% of the distance. That's lap 47. But we think the McLarens are fueled for a 2-stop. So when eventually, depends how long this safety car goes on before they abandon the race. But if McLaren have to come in the pits for fuel long before, let's say, drivers 7 through 15, they're going to fall to the back of the pack. Then it'll be pivotal to see when they decide to abandon proceedings, because all of the drivers who have radioed in have said it's nearly impossible at this speed, let alone racing speeds. So McLaren could find themselves like Ferrari, at the back of the pack and out of the points.
It's a good point. Of course, from Hamilton's point of view, all he's really concerned about is where he is relative to Alonso, because with the 2 Ferraris at the back of the field as well, it's not as if Raikkonen could potentially do a great deal of damage to them. But Louise Goodman, what have you got?
Well, like quite a few of the drivers have been radioing into their teams. David Coulthard apparently has just been on to say this is crazy guys, I can't see a thing out here. Anthony Davidson reporting to his team on the pit wall that the visibility is so bad he can't even see the lights of the car in front of him. The team are telling him we're just going to have to stick with it, mate, and trust in the decision of the race director.
Thanks for that, Louise. Well, it's ironic, isn't it? Alexander Wurz, who's out there in the Williams, his wife Julia had a 3rd baby boy last night at home in Monaco. I bet Alex is probably thinking he might as well have been there, considering he's come all this way for
testing the track out. McLaren's look reasonably well bolted down, don't they? They need to start saving some fuel, because remember, of course, Ferrari fueled their car. Did they fuel it to the brim when they came in for those wet tyres or not? Because it could be a question of who goes the furthest here behind the safety car and how long that safety car is out for. It's still raining extremely hard out there, and the last time a race was abandoned, probably a race I was in, I think, back in 1991, apparently, in Adelaide.
I remember. Everybody piled off to watch Paul Simon in concert, I think it was, and the sun came out about an hour after they'd abandoned the race. It was a great irony. I remember the day very well. But it was one of those things. The conditions were similar to this actually, but of course it was a street track lined with walls, so significantly more dangerous than Fuji with its massive runoff areas.
I remember '89 when none of the drivers wanted to start the race. Bernie walked down the grid and said, "Get in the car, the race is starting." So we all did, and the race did start. Prost pulled out. We then went on to race, and Senna led by about half a lap over everyone until he ran into the back of me in my Pirelli shod Brabham at the time.
Yeah, amazing images of the front of the McLaren coming out of the mist and smashing into the back of Martin's Brabham. So you can see Jenson Button will be very much looking forward to this race when it does get started. He's in a very strong position with the McLaren's going to be obliged to make a stop. Obviously they are saving fuel all the time, but they are going to have to stop before anybody else, and Heidfeld and Button will be licking their lips in anticipation.
I nearly hit Coulthard. Tell them that they should stop so quickly.
Trulli said he nearly hit Coulthard. He's in the train. Coulthard 10th, 11th is Trulli in the train. So what happens if they need to suspend the race? Well, if according to the sporting regulations, should it become necessary to suspend the race because of the bad weather or a blockage in the track, the clerk of the course will order the red flags to be shown, and the abort lights will come on, and overtaking is then forbidden. Everybody must get back to the grid and form up there in staggered formation and wait until given the instruction by the race director that the race will then restart again under the safety car. So that's what will happen if we are forced to suspend the race. But interestingly, the clock will not stop, so it'll still keep ticking down towards the 2-hour mark if that's what we have to do. Still no action here then from Fuji. We'll be back in a moment. Laps into it then. Apparently Mark Webber's been radioing in. He's not feeling 100%, but he's still out there in 5th place waiting for something to happen. There's Flavio Briatore, the boss of the Renault team, shaking his head. Difficult decisions to be made here by Charlie Whiting and all the senior people in Formula One. What to do about this very delicate situation. There is Jenson Button, 4th in the train, with a heavily fueled Honda. Just Nick Heidfeld between himself and the 2 McLarens then. Of course, keeping any kind of heat in the tyres very, very difficult, not only with the cold track temperatures of the rain, but also at the slow pace that they're going at behind the safety car. And that increases the difficulty for the drivers of getting the cars to stay on the road. Grand Prix from Fuji Motor Speedway. We're 10 laps into this race, but we're not actually racing. Behind the safety car, he has not yet released the field. The conditions here, as you can see, are absolutely terrible. And the 2 McLarens are at the front of the train, with Lewis Hamilton, the pole position man, ahead of Fernando Alonso, then Nick Heidfeld and Jenson Button in 4th place. The 2 Ferraris, if you've just joined us, went out on the wrong tyre, would you believe, at the start, pushing the rules to the absolute limit, but they had to come in for the extreme wet tyre, and that's dropped them to the back of the field. They are 20th and 21st, Felipe Massa and Kimi Raikkonen. Only Tonio Liuzzi in the Toro Rosso, who's had a few problems, is behind them in the train, behind the safety car. So that's good news for McLaren, but their concern now is how far this is going to go behind the safety car, because they were the only cars then remaining who are going to have to make 2 stops here this afternoon. And sooner or later they're going to have to pit for fuel as Liuzzi's problems continue and he comes into the pits. His teammate, incidentally, Sebastian Vettel, managed to qualify in 8th place, an absolutely fantastic effort by the young German. First time this season Toro Rosso have been in the top 10 in qualifying. Liuzzi makes a tyre change and puts some fuel in.
So are they now just fueling these cars so they'll go to the end and hope that if this goes all the way behind safety car to just clear the 75% of the minimum distance, are they hoping to just end up with track position because they stayed out longest basically, and when you reform in the snake behind the pack you can't overtake?
Well, when you're 22nd in Liuzzi's position, you've got nothing to lose because all he's lost is he's going to gain back again because he's going to catch back up to the tail. So absolutely nothing to lose for Tonio Liuzzi. Ted Kravitz is in the pits.
Yeah, and I'm down at the McLaren garage, but Martin, yes, you're absolutely right, and that is what Ferrari did after they realised that they'd made that terrible error of starting both cars on intermediate tyres. They brought them in and absolutely brimmed full the tanks as much as they can, and I tell you what, down here at McLaren, they're absolutely terribly nervous that actually they will have to come in for fuel at some point. They are saving a load of fuel under the safety car, that's what they will have to fuel at some point. And then Charlie Whiting will decide as they rejoin at the back of the pack to stop the race, and that will really put them in trouble. So very nervous conditions down here in McLaren. Anthony Hamilton, by the way, has had to leave the garage.
Somewhere in the middle of there, thank you for that, Ted. Somewhere in the middle of there, Jarno Trulli has spun at turn 6. So just extraordinary. And look at the visibility there. As soon as the speed picks up, that visibility halves again. I know what it's like. You come into a corner and you brake, your sensors go into hyper mode. You're listening more than anything to the car in front, looking for any peripheral landmarks you can see. And as the cars slow down, then all of the spray starts to come down, and all of a sudden you can see where you're going. It's like somebody switches the lights on. Often you accelerate then back into the corner until the spray comes up again. It's virtually impossible. So you're more listening than seeing.
Well, you know what it's like when you're driving down the motorway on a rainy day like this behind a lorry and it's throwing water up in a big spray. Formula One car, the tyres alone displace 80 litres of water per second, shifting it off the racing line. But of course the way the aerodynamics work as well, sucking the car down onto the racetrack, blows the water out of the back as well. So if you're on a racetrack with one of these things, it's just a wall of mist out there, as you can see.
Just sanity check this with you though, James. If Ferrari are fueled to the end and this race never gets underway without a safety car, Ferrari could win the race, couldn't they? They could. They should be the furthest up, even though they're running 20th and 21st at the moment, they should be the furthest up the field with enough fuel to get them to the end of the race, if indeed they did fuel it to the end of the race.
Yes, but I think we would probably hit 2 hours and we wouldn't have done 51 laps, which is the 75% distance, so they wouldn't get full points.
Yeah, but no way that McLaren, even at this speed, can go 51 laps, is there? It's going to have to pit. All of the other, even those that were one stopping, are going to have to pit at some time. And Liuzzi, I wonder if Toro Rosso have just played the same game. Although because Liuzzi started from the pit lane, they're showing him a lap down at the moment. But my understanding was that you join the race from the pit lane and you don't lose anything. But of course that's under normal sort of light start conditions, not safety car conditions. Liuzzi has missed a lap because he was sitting in the pit lane as they left the grid.
Well, normally Formula One is about the pursuit of excellence, but at the moment it's about grasping in the dark for a possible explanation of what might happen in the future and what might give you some sort of sporting advantage some way down the line. At the moment it's hard to read, but certainly there's some bad luck scenarios that could arise for Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso if this race continues behind the safety car for most of its duration, as Martin was just speculating. That would indeed be bad news for them.
Well, there's got to come a point where, some of the drivers at the front are going to be going, yeah, it's good, let's go racing, it's fine. But Luis?
Obviously the conditions are really bad out there and visibility is close to zero. But we think, hopefully the FIA are keeping a close look on it and won't start the race until it becomes, a safe condition.
Any suggestion from the drivers that, the FIA really should call this all off and let's bring the cars in?
They've been pretty vocal about their concerns in the mid-grid, but I think they're both experienced boys, and they should be okay. We've had a bit of fun. Mark's just thrown up in the car. He had something not so good to eat last night, but he's feeling a lot better now.
Thanks, Christian.
He did look a bit grey and grim on the start line, didn't he, Mark? But yeah, that's just what you need, isn't it, with a full face crash helmet on and a face full of water. He's going to be feeling pretty grim out there, that's for sure. So yeah, interesting here. I mean, we could be watching this procession all afternoon. They are doing sort of 2 minutes 10 now. They were doing 2 minutes 13. I think that's really been controlled by Ben Mailander, watching to see how close the cars are in his mirrors. Ben being the safety car driver, of course. But as I say, if there's a lot of standing water, sometimes the drivers just can't keep up with the safety car. Maybe Ferrari, look at the rain. I have to say, as soon as I thought my car could get to the end of the road, I think I'd take the gamble, especially if I was sort of mid-pack or, say, 6th backwards.
Maximum 10 points if Hamilton and Alonso either don't score or score minimum points here this afternoon through a quirky twist of fate, and that brings Raikkonen right back into the championship hunt with 2 races to go, and here comes Kimi Raikkonen to do precisely that. They've obviously worked it out. They can fuel him to the finish of the race now. Ted.
Certainly can, and I'm down here in the Ferrari garage. A couple of people desperately trying to kick me out, but I'm not going to have any of it. Here he goes, and they're going to put the fuel hose on. And yes, very long time, and as they do, but that's a good stop. Excellent work by the Ferrari guys. And what was the tyre change? I didn't think they changed any tyres on that.
Well, this race certainly could be decided by whoever's got the biggest fuel tank and can make the earliest pit stop as a result of that, and also whoever's feeling inclined to gamble. Certainly anyone towards the back of the field, as the Ferraris were, have nothing to lose from doing that. They can just sit back now and wait and see.
Now Raikkonen's going to find out what the track is like, because he's got some clear air in front of him. He can just push it a little bit harder. I don't think they'd have bothered changing the wets. They've not done any work. They'll actually be nicely scrubbed in now, and you know, they're going to be running cool anyway behind the safety car. So they've just tanked it up. I wonder if McLaren will have wished they'd have done that. It's a gamble, because if they do take the safety car off the track, then McLaren are sitting very pretty, although they won't be going that much further before they've got to stop anyway. But that is a huge gamble. But as you say, if you're at the back of the field anyway, and Spiker have done the same, we could see a bizarre result here.
Well, let's figure this one out. McLaren, we think, could have gone about 22, 23 laps into the race in normal conditions. They've been saving half a lap of fuel per lap behind the safety car. We're now 14 laps into it, so they've saved 7 laps of fuel. So that takes them to about lap 30 in this race. But we know that the Ferraris can go to the, particularly Raikkonen, can go to the finish now on the fuel that he's got. And if we do stay behind the safety car the whole way through, of course, you're not allowed to overtake behind the safety car. So if the McLarens have to come out of the chain and pit, they will rejoin wherever it is they rejoin, which is at the back, because they won't be allowed out of the pit lane until the safety car has gone past. So they'll be at the back of the field behind everybody else. Some tyres being prepared then in the Ferrari garage for the other driver, which is Felipe Massa. This is interesting. Massa was in front of Raikkonen before Raikkonen made that additional stop. I bet you Massa's behind him when they come out. They'll want Raikkonen to be in front of Massa, as if the race is stopped and it never gets started. Raikkonen's the one who's going to get the big points, not Massa. And of course, it's Raikkonen who has a chance of winning the World Championship still.
Yeah, that could be, as boring as it seems, a pit stop from the back of the field. That could be one of the most crucial moments of the afternoon. We'll see if I'm right or not. We'll find out a little bit later on, but it does depend if the safety car stays out. But looking out of this commentary box window, I see nothing out there that suggests they should be bringing the safety car in.
Well, it's interesting, you were saying we'll see what Raikkonen's going to do now, because he obviously had an empty track in front of him. He did a 36.6 second middle sector. Most people are lapping significantly slower than that. In the high 40s, I think, is what we've been seeing in the last few laps for that middle sector of the lap. So clearly the Ferrari held on to go 10 seconds per sector faster.
Yeah, that's incredible, isn't it? And also Yamamoto, who made a pit stop, has lapped 10 seconds faster than they've been doing behind this safety car. So lap cars may now overtake. That suggests to me that they're going to bring the safety car in.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not going to go down well with a few people.
It isn't, is it? Particularly anybody wearing a red coat today. Well, the new safety car rules for 2007. They have a new policy of letting the lapped cars overtake. If you remember, we saw that in the Nürburgring with Lewis Hamilton, who was allowed to do it when he went a lap down. And that, as Martin says, does indicate that the race director is preparing to let the cars go and to withdraw the safety car. It's not a guarantee that that's what he's thinking, but now at least when everybody as Liuzzi will come past everybody and unlap himself in the Toro Rosso. Once he's done that, we will wait and see whether Charlie Whiting, the race director, is going to let this race start. Into the pits comes the Williams of Alexander Wurz.
Yeah, it's you know what? I don't think it necessarily does mean that they will be they'll be releasing the safety car. It's just a procedural thing, really, isn't it? Car 5 is under investigation by the stewards. I believe that could well be for overtaking under the safety car earlier on in the race. But now we've got then several people coming off the back of the grid to that pit stop. Let's see if that's just procedural, because Liuzzi will be laughing, because he did stop and fill up again, didn't he? So he could be with the Ferraris with enough fuel to get to the end of the race. Ted has further news.
I do believe it is procedural. None of the teams are saying to their drivers on the radio that this is actually time to start warming up the tyres, because the safety car is going to come in. And looking towards turn 1, there's a massive cloud coming in, but I don't think it's going to get better anytime soon, Martin. But just interestingly, I went and spoke to the guys from AMG Mercedes who run the safety car, and I asked them, can the safety car do the whole race on a tank of fuel that it carries? And they said no, it can't. But they do have another safety car. That one is fueled up, and what they'll do is that either they'll keep the lead of the race.
Well spotted, Ted. That's a very good spot. We're watching Liuzzi making his way through. That'll surprise a few drivers. It always amazes me how many drivers are not told that they're about to be lapped like that with a car coming through. And he's now clear of the pack. He'll be able to go past the safety car as well, and then we'll see what kind of pace he's got as he tries to regain the back of the field.
Yeah, that's possibly a reason for doing it, to see what the conditions are like. Let's just clear up the Massa situation and overtaking behind the safety car when a race has started behind a safety car. It says in the sporting regulations that overtaking during the first lap only is permitted if a car is delayed when leaving its grid positions, and cars behind cannot avoid passing it without unduly delaying. So Massa didn't overtake on the first lap, did he? It was 2 or 3 laps in that he did that. So I think that is the incident. That
it wasn't of when leaving the grid either.
It wasn't when leaving the grid. It wasn't on the first lap.
That's the incident. They have to do that, because if you're second on the grid and you get away slowly and you're 14th, you're kind of in no man's land. Do you go forward or do you go backwards? And so that's why they have to do that. But Massa then getting the drive-through penalty. That'll put him behind Wurz and Liuzzi and cost him, in reality, cost him a couple of places at the end of this Grand Prix.
Yeah, well, if it never gets started behind the safety car, then it will do. But it's not a great penalty at the moment, given that he is 20th at the moment, and Liuzzi is 22nd behind Alexander Wurz in 21st place.
Well, I reckon if this race goes all the way under safety car, it'll be won by Raikkonen, followed by Wurz and Liuzzi. That's the podium at the moment, if they all did the smart thing.
Well, Liuzzi, with no trying to catch up, of course, unlapping himself, no traffic in front of him and no speed restriction, did a 27-second first sector, which is 9 seconds faster than everybody else is doing behind the safety car. And his middle sector was 36 seconds, where Lewis Hamilton behind the safety car is doing 53. So you can see that it is possible to go significantly faster out there without flying off the racetrack, because Liuzzi is doing that right now.
136.4. It'd be interesting to see if he got round in front of Massa as well, won't it? See if Massa, after his drive-through, stays ahead of Liuzzi, who's still making up that lap. But you know, that's a pretty handy lap time of 136.4 in these conditions.
Say that again.
So the race directors have got to be looking at that and thinking, well, hang on, maybe the track's not that bad.
I think that's precisely why they gave the instruction for Liuzzi to unlap himself at this time, so they could assess it. The interesting thing is that, of course, it indicates that the track itself isn't in bad condition and that there is grip out there, but it also indicates that the great concern is the visibility with the spray coming off the other cars. That's the problem the drivers have got.
Well, they'll spread out a bit anyway. But, you know, remember qualifying yesterday on quite a wet track, albeit on the intermediates. They were only 6.5 seconds on wet tyres away from a dry time. So clearly this track does yield fundamentally good grip in wet conditions.
3 cars in the pit lane now, Barrichello, Sato and Trulli. Not because they were going to run out of fuel and because they had to make a stop. They are all 15th place or worse in the train and feel that it's worth taking the same gamble that Massa, Wirtz and Raikkonen have all taken. They are now fueled to the finish, and we're being told that the safety car will come in this lap. Charlie Whiting has looked at that lap time of Liuzzi's, decided the track is safe and enough to drive on. It's purely the visibility in the spray that's the problem, but we are going to go racing here at Fuji. The lights are off on the safety car, and that means that Lewis Hamilton, the pole sitter, 5th time of the 2007 season, is about to go racing with his teammate Fernando Alonso right behind him. Nick Heidfeld 3rd in the train. 4th is Jenson Button, who we can get a massive result here this afternoon. 5th is Mark Webber. 6th, Sebastian Vettel. 7th is Kubica. 8th, Fisichella. 9th, Kovalainen. And 10th, David Coulthard. Hamilton has allowed the safety car to pull away from him. He is going to bide his time. He is allowed to pick the moment. He's playing chicken with Alonso. You're not allowed to overtake before the start-finish line, of course. You can see Jenson Button there, 4th, has got Mark Webber nibbling at his heels, and it's a question of when does Lewis put the hammer down and what does Alonso do about it. Lewis is now gone. He's not allowed to overtake him. He's trying to force him into a mistake. A wonderful piece of gamesmanship by Lewis Hamilton, and away he goes. And now Alonso's riding his slipstream. He pulls out to have some sort of visibility as they go across the start-finish line, and we are racing at Fuji Speedway for the first time in 30 years. Lewis Hamilton leads them away. Alonso is 2nd. 3rd is Heidfeld. 4th Button. 5th Webber. 6th Vettel. 7th Kubica. And 8th Fisichella. And the run down to the first corner is a lot more simple for Hamilton than it was in Spa 2 weeks ago. Alonso is behind him. Where is the 3rd place man? Heidfeld has had a problem. Jenson Button has gone past him. So too has Mark Webber. And 3rd place man Heidfeld now gets passed by teammate Kubica, as at the front Lewis Hamilton pulls away from his teammate Alonso. We've got an accident there and it looks like Felipe Massa in the Ferrari and Alex Wirtz, who are at the back of the field, have collided.
Well, what a massive relief this is going to be for those that were getting short of fuel, that they've started the race, but already carnage then down at that first corner as they've tried to guess where the braking point is going to be. And clearly Wirtz looks like he's got it wrong, gone straight into the back of Massa. He's away really from the firing line of turn 1. He's dropped it a long way before the corner and just sideswiped Massa. Surely that must have damaged the Ferrari. So Wirtz lost it under braking then down into turn 1.
Lewis Hamilton leads them away. What sort of lap time does he do? Vettel is 3rd, 4th is Webber, who's got himself in front of Jenson Button, who was caught out, I think, behind Heidfeld when Heidfeld dropped it in the BMW. Heidfeld is now shown as being in 10th place, so a setback for Jenson Button, but not one that he can't overcome.
Yeah, well, there's the main parts of the standing water, which were, as we heard from Mark Webber, out of turn 3. And after turns 8 and 9 have not been spinning the drivers off the road. They're beginning to clear that out of the way, and as long as they spread out a bit, and surely Massa's got right rear suspension damage, it just ripped the front off that Williams, and he's coasted into the pit. A puncture at least, I would have thought, but it's all falling apart for Ferrari today. And what will they be able to do with that? And he's gone straight through.
It's his drive-through. It's his drive-through penalty, of course, that he had to serve.
Yes, you're not allowed to serve it behind the safety car, are you?
Exactly. You're not allowed to serve it behind the safety car. We saw that in the Nürburgring, and he's gone straight on at turn 1. I think he's getting a little hot under the collar, Felipe Massa. He knows that his World Championship hopes, which were at best slim, are now completely going to be eradicated this afternoon. He's 20 points behind Hamilton with only 2 races to go after this one. Riding on board is Sebastian Vettel in 3rd place. What a great performance by him yesterday in qualifying, and now he finds himself in a wonderful position. We believe he's also fueled pretty heavy, so he's going to go further into this race than Hamilton and Alonso, and if he holds it all together, it means he'll lead this race at a certain point.
Yeah, he's 2 seconds a lap slower than the McLaren, but heavier fueled for sure, and with a full wet setup. So Vettel looking handy. Webber, we know he's been sick in his helmet, but he's holding 4th place at the moment. Button 5th, Fisichella 6th, Kovalainen 7th, Kubica 8th, Coulthard 9th, Sutil 10th now for Spiker, driving beautifully here this weekend.
It was down at the back of the grid in 20th spot, but here in these extremely wet conditions he's managed to get himself up to 10th place, and we'll keep an eye on Adrian Sutil, the German driver in the Spiker, in 10th spot. He's now ahead of Nick Heidfeld, who was 3rd in the train behind the safety car when we had our start to this race. Hamilton has pulled out a gap of 2.2 seconds over Fernando Alonso, and they're vying for fastest sector times. Alonso fastest first sector, Hamilton fastest middle sector. Here's a look at what happened between Button and Heidfeld. And Button, did he lose his front wing? He's very lucky if he didn't. Yeah, he did. He's staying out in 5th place with no front wing.
How does that work? That's a replay of some time ago, isn't it? A couple of laps ago. Can't be, surely. He cannot be doing those kind of times with no front wing at all.
Yeah, well, he's doing 1:34.9s, and Hamilton's doing 1:29, so he's 5 seconds a lap slower. But I mean, downforce is so important on a rainy day. There's a damaged front wing of Takuma Sato, 17th place man in the Super Aguri Honda. That's a slightly more of a problem because it's tucked up under the front wheels.
Yeah, and if that goes under your wheel, under braking, you just go straight to the scene of the accident. You just skid along on your own wheel. So Davidson then, was that Sato, did you say? He's down in 17th at the moment. He'll hit this lap, surely. Indeed, he does. You have to be so careful. You can actually slow the car down even.
Now, this Button situation is interesting as Sato comes into the pits, because he's slowing the field behind him down by 5 seconds a lap, and that means the two McLarens at the front, if he stays out there much longer, there'll be a big window for them to slot back into when they make their pit stop. They'll be monitoring this.
Jensen's only 3 seconds off the pace with no front wing, but he's just had a very poor first sector. Suspect he didn't slow down enough at the first corner and lost 4 seconds. So Button will be fighting with Fisichella and Kovalainen. We think Button's going to have to come in this lap from what is currently 5th place. Webber's passed him.
But he has done the McLarens a huge favour because he's opened the field right out. Fisichella behind him is now 25 seconds behind race leader Hamilton. Got a fire down at Super Aguri. Sato takes off with the car on fire, and it's raining hard enough to put it out probably as he comes down the pit lane. Still smoke coming off that side pod. It has gone out. So Sato rejoins the race after another drama in this oh-so theatrical Japanese Grand Prix. Let's take another look at what happened.
Maybe the fuel flap is stuck open or something, and it was leaking fuel. So he's thinking in a way, where can I find some water? I know, I'll drive out onto the racetrack. Plenty out there. So providing that seals itself up, he'll be okay, because it would have been a surface fire rather than anything near the wiring as Button pits. What a shame for Jensen. He was in such a great position there.
He was in a wonderful position, 4th in the train when the cars were released by the safety car. Got caught up in Heidfeld's incident. Chance of victory gone. Still a chance of points. He'll be fueled to the finish of the race now.
Seemed to me he was part of Heidfeld's incident. Jensen was up the inside and Heidfeld turned in. We'll have to see it again to see if there's any blame in that.
And Fisichella is now almost half a minute behind Lewis Hamilton, who will need about 35 seconds to make a pit stop. That's how much time it'll take out of his race. So, and the same, of course, for Alonso, who's 3 seconds behind him. So that means that only Vettel and Webber will go past them. If they can stay out a few laps longer, they'll be able to pit and rejoin in front of Fisichella, which will be absolutely critical. Behind Fisichella is a big train of cars, including Kovalainen, Kubica, Coulthard and Sutil, and they won't want to come out into that lot. Here we're riding on board with Kimi Raikkonen in the Ferrari, who has managed to fight his way through to 12th place. We haven't seen much of him, but bear in mind he was 21st when they were released by the safety car.
You can't imagine how brave you have to be to stick your foot down hard when that's all you can see and you're doing 205 miles an hour. But you daren't lift off either because you'll get hit from behind. Raikkonen so nearly lost his front wing coming onto the pit straight up against Nick Heidfeld in front of him in the BMW. I can only tell you that by looking at the computer screen. We can't see enough from Raikkonen's car to know other than it's just a Formula 1 car. And this is Massa against Trulli. So Massa's right rear suspension didn't take take a knock, it seems. Massa making his way through the field.
No, it's Raikkonen coming up on the back of Ralf Schumacher. That's the battle for 11th place. Raikkonen is trying to do here what the man he replaced at Ferrari, Michael Schumacher, did to everybody at the 96 Spanish Grand Prix, if you remember that one, where he was in a different race from everyone else. It seemed that he had a dry track and they had a wet one. At one point he was over a minute clear. It looks like Raikkonen's having one of those kind of days. He's already passed, I think, 9 or 10 cars in this Grand Prix. And remember, he's fuel to the finish.
Yeah, although he's now 43 seconds behind the McLarens, but he is bringing himself very much into play, Ted.
Just on the Ferrari, Massa does seem to be okay. They had a look at it as he served his drive-through penalty. The suspension seems to be all right. The Ferrari spokesman, Luca Colliani, has confirmed that the team just didn't know. They say they did not know that they were meant to start the race on extreme weather tyres. And, well, consider that all the rest of the teams knew. I knew. Well, draw your own conclusions.
Yeah, I knew. We all knew that. So
I think the only thing we can say without getting into an enormous amount of trouble is that Ferrari have always pushed the rules to the absolute limit, and there's another example of it. But it hasn't worked out for them so far. But I have to say that Kimi Raikkonen is driving the race of his life here. If you remember back in Japan a couple of years ago, he put in a stellar performance from the back of the field in Suzuka to win the Grand Prix, passing Fisichella on the final lap. And it looks like we're in for another one of those today from the Iceman. He's really on it in the Ferrari as Alonso goes off the racing line, looking for the grip, trying to chase down his teammate Hamilton. He's maintaining the gap at just below 3 seconds. Vettel in third is 15 seconds behind, then Webber is 3 seconds behind him, and the Fisichella now critically is 32 seconds behind the race leader. Another lap or two and the McLarens will be able to pit and rejoin in front of that train of cars headed by Fisichella.
And Hamilton's pulled the lead back out to 2.8 seconds again. You have to say it was the right decision to restart the race. We've seen some incidents, but we haven't seen anybody simply aquaplaning off the road into an accident. So it's worked out for them in that respect. But Alonso very much keeping Hamilton honest, albeit 3 seconds behind. Raikkonen up to 11th now, 45 seconds behind them. So critically, the McLarens, after their pit stop, which we think is reasonably imminent, they'll still be in front of their main championship rivals.
They certainly will. Sebastian Vettel and Mark Webber in third and fourth places will go longer than the McLarens. They, like most people, decided to do a one-stop race, so they were going to carry about 7 laps more fuel, maybe more, maybe 8 or 9 laps more fuel than the McLarens, so they will go quite some way. And of course, once the McLarens come out, they'll have Vettel and Webber in front of them, and they'll have to get past them. We believe this is for Fernando Alonso. That's what we're being told from the pits. Second place man, 3 seconds behind teammate Lewis Hamilton. There is Alonso, and into the pit lane he comes. Full wet tyres, as you would imagine, going on. Still raining very hard here in Fuji. The clouds have descended, the mist has descended. In fact, I can't even see the cars driving out of turn 6, which is less than half a kilometre away from me. They just drive out of the corner and disappear into the mist.
Yeah, Hamilton's gone fastest of anybody on that lap as Alonso pits. We can assume Hamilton will be shortly afterwards, and they'll fuel that McLaren then to the end of the Grand Prix. That's why he's waiting so long. And away he goes. Looks a neat and tidy stop. So Hamilton will push hard now. This could well be his in-lap anyway, so he should resume the lead.
And Fisichella has just gone past us in the commentary position in the Renault. There he is. So Alonso comes out behind Fisichella and into that queue of cars that I was talking about. He's behind Fisichella, Kovalainen and Kubica. Here comes Raikkonen. He's not far behind Alonso, you know.
He's past Sutil, but he's lapping at the moment Raikkonen some 4 seconds a lap slower. He's 51 seconds behind Hamilton now, so it's cost him through the traffic, but of course he doesn't have to stop again.
No, but that looks to me like that's cost Alonso. He's come out into a great thick cloud of traffic. Hamilton had to push because he knew he needed a bigger margin over Fisichella. His margin is 36 seconds because Alonso, the first car to come in, he of course was 3 seconds behind Hamilton, so that's why it was so marginal. Hamilton should be okay here to come out certainly in front of his teammate, and hope
Fisichella does still have to stop. Let's see if Lewis can hit his marks. It's a perfect stop so far from Lewis, and new wet tyres go on. They've only got 3 sets of these wet tyres, but that's a brand new set going on. Fuel to the finish, exactly like Fernando Alonso, and good work by McLaren boys. 11.6 seconds absolutely seamless.
Vettel has gone past. He leads the Japanese Grand Prix. Sebastian Vettel in the Toro Rosso leads. Second is Mark Webber, who has also gone through. But can Hamilton get out of front of the train of cars headed by Fisichella? It's got Alonso behind him. There goes the back marker Sato. There is the Renault, and Hamilton's done it. Of course, these cars all have to stop again, but critically for Hamilton, he's in front of them, and Alonso isn't. That's the order at the moment then. Vettel, Webber, Hamilton, Fisichella, Kovalainen, Kubica, Coulthard, Alonso, and I think Alonso will be furious.
What a difference a few seconds make. Hamilton must be 4 cars ahead of him. And of course, with this kind of visibility, that's going to make a big difference. And this is why Alonso's so far back behind that pack. He went off the road. That's a replay, went very, very wide, sort of taking the wider, supposedly grippy line in the wet, but touched the white line and went straight onto the AstroTurf. So Hamilton then will resume, not in
who now has 2 cars in front of him, Vettel and Webber, both of whom have to make their pit stops. So in terms of the challenge for the race win, they have gone away. His main challenges for the race win are Alonso and Raikkonen, who are close together on the racetrack, but critically have got 1, 2, 3, 4 cars between him and them. So long way to go yet.
Then started behind the safety car. How many laps do we have behind the safety car, James? It was 23, I believe. 23 laps. And then a lot of drivers radioing in saying it's too dangerous, we can't start the race. They had lap times. Many drivers had taken the gamble that the entire distance might go behind the safety car up to the 75% point, lap 47, and gambled on coming in early and filling their cars up to the very end of the Grand Prix. As we see David Coulthard there fighting with the Renault. Coulthard fighting hard, currently P7 in the Red Bull. But then there's Massa off the road yet again for Ferrari. He's had a drive-through penalty for overtaking behind the safety car, having spun behind the safety car, even at reduced speed, as did Jarno Trulli in the Toyota. That's when we heard the drivers saying it's just too dangerous, get this stop. That was at safety car speeds, remember, not at racing speeds. Once they released the pack, they've been, generally speaking, fine, although we've seen lots of people tripping over each other. Massa so lucky there not to lose his front wing. It's lap 31. Sebastian Vettel leads from Mark Webber and Hamilton third.
So Sebastian Vettel leads the Grand Prix for Toro Rosso, with Mark Webber second, Hamilton third, and Kovalainen in fourth place. David Coulthard is having a strong drive in the Red Bull. Poor old Jenson Button we saw knocking his front wing off. He fancied his chances of a podium today. He's now in 20th place in the Honda in some very thick traffic. Fernando Alonso, having run second in the opening stages, is down in 8th place, and this is a tremendous race in prospect here. 36 laps still to go, and hats off to Charlie White and the race director for taking the decision to start it, because it's a good race and it seems pretty safe at the moment.
Well, it's interesting to see that Alonso is lapping 2.5 seconds slower than Hamilton because he's in the spray and the traffic. So Hamilton's net lead is just extending massively. Raikkonen also a second or so slower.
That's what you can see at close on 200 miles an hour if you're Robert Kubica, closing down on Giancarlo Fisichella in the Renault. He probably knows whether he passed him. It looks like he did. Kovalainen, I beg your pardon, in fourth place. Looks like he's put him behind him. So Kubica, in which case, up into fourth place. Having a strong run here, the pole. Up the inside he goes. Thank you very much. This is the battle for fourth and fifth places then between Robert Kubica and Heikki Kovalainen. Behind them is Giancarlo Fisichella as Toro Rosso get ready, presumably, for race leader Sebastian Vettel. Into the pits comes Sebastian Vettel at 20, surely one of the youngest drivers ever to lead a lap of a Formula One race. He's led 4 of them in his Toro Rosso. He certainly put them on the map this weekend with an excellent performance in qualifying and a stunning drive in the opening stages of this rain-soaked Japanese Grand Prix here at Fuji Speedway. Mark Webber is now the leader for Red Bull Racing, but he still has to make his pit stop. There is Fernando Alonso, who is battling with Nick Heidfeld over 8th place, and there is Kimi Raikkonen, who's fought his way back from the very back of the field and comes out behind Vettel when Vettel rejoins. If you've just joined us, there is your race leader, Mark Webber. The story is we had the first 18 laps of this Japanese Grand Prix under safety car conditions. You can see yourself, it's raining hard and the visibility was very poor. When they finally, before they unleashed them, the 2 Ferraris were now in 7th place.
He must have some damage to the, maybe to his car. He's been very slow. Raikkonen's catching him too now. Lewis Hamilton, very slow at the moment. 2 cars passed him on this lap. So Fisichella goes up to 4th. David Coulthard, who will be long fueled, I'd imagine, having started 12th. Webber pits from the lead for Red Bull. What is happening to Lewis Hamilton? He lost 4 seconds in the middle sector alone. Does he have a puncture? Does he have something falling off the left rear where he got whacked by Robert Kubica?
Well, the cars, the McLaren mechanics are not out in the pit lane as Hamilton goes through to complete another lap. You can see he's dropped down now to 6th place. Mark Webber makes his pit stop. Hamilton goes down the main straight as he in front of Webber. There is Fisichella, there is Vettel, and there is Hamilton. So Webber rejoins behind Hamilton in 6th place.
But only just, imagine how far Lewis was ahead of Webber when he pitted. Remember, it was over half a minute, wasn't it, that the 2 McLarens had? We were saying they had nearly a pit stop in hand, and somehow, somewhere, with the spins, the contact, slow lap time, and this is Hamilton going very wide through turns 5, and that's where the Renault of Fisichella passed him, and Coulthard slipped through there too somewhere. Here we go, we're on the outside. Coulthard's along the inside too, and he didn't quite take the place then. Must have
make their pit stops. Heikki Kovalainen, who leads this race now for Renault, Giancarlo Fisichella in the 2nd Renault, and David Coulthard have still all got to pit, and that will drop them all behind Lewis Hamilton, who will then resume the race lead, provided there's no damage on his car. Here comes a hard-charging Jenson Button, trying to make up from knocking off his front wing earlier on. He's attacking Jarno Trulli. This is a battle for 19th place. Jenson Button way down the field.
Battle for Japanese honour too, with Honda versus Toyota. Makes it stick, but it's for 19th, as you say, James. At the moment, Kovalainen leads on lap 38, 7.3 seconds ahead of his teammate Fisichella. David Coulthard moves up into 3rd. Hamilton has regained reasonable lap time, but only reasonable lap time. He's 2.6 seconds ahead of Webber, who's 5th. Vettel just behind Webber, who's 6th for Toro Rosso. Raikkonen, look at that, he's up to 7th, fuel to the end, and lapping well. Mind you, he's just had a scruffy lap too. So all sorts of variation going on in lap time. Very, very inconsistent.
I think what's happening here as well, if you look at it, is the cars that still have to make a stop are all lapping pretty quickly in the 1-minute 30s, whereas Hamilton is lapping in the high 1:31s. Last lap for Raikkonen, who is also fueled to the finish, was a high 1-minute 33. What did Alonso do? A high 1:32. So it's all the cars that are light that are going quickly at the moment. Hamilton's pace seems to be the benchmark for everybody who's already made a stop. Vettel is slightly faster than him. He's 3/10 faster than him, but so he's the fastest man out there, Vettel, of the men who are fueled to the finish at the moment. That's the top 8. Alonso a single point as things stand. Hamilton down to 4th, and still a lot of racing to go here. Still 30 laps to the finish.
Do I sense it's getting wetter out there too? We're getting more standing water now than we had before. I wonder if we're heading back towards safety car conditions. It just senses Ted's down in the pit lane. Is it still raining hard out there, Ted, or raining harder?
Yes, it's raining harder, that's the point. When they started about 5 minutes ago, it wasn't really raining at all, just a few spots here and there, but now it's pretty constant rain on the puddles who really matter. His engineers and Martin Whitmarsh and the people in the racks, and they're actually quite calm about this. Could they be saying, look boys, we're looking okay on this, we know Lewis is fueled to the end, let the people by as best you can who still have to stop again, and then we're not involved, we won't be involved in their race, and we'll carry on. But huge plumes of spray now coming up on the main straight.
Thank you, Ted. We just got a great shot of some damage on the side pod of Lewis Hamilton. I believe that was Lewis Hamilton's car. Incident involving car number 10 is under investigation by the stewards, and that, of course, is the BMW of Robert Kubica, who smashed into the side. It's in fact Alonso. We're looking at the damage on the side of his car, not Hamilton. But anyway, it's Kubica who smashed into the side of Hamilton, which is what dropped him down from what would have been the lead down to what he currently is in 4th place. So let's get this in context here. Hamilton's 4th. The 3 cars in front of him all still have to stop. If the safety car comes out, obviously before they make their stop, that will have one effect. If it comes out after they've made their stops, that will have a different effect, and it'll be a good one from Lewis Hamilton's point of view. All the cars behind Hamilton have already made their stops, and all apart from Vettel are lapping more slowly than Lewis Hamilton.
That'll have less effect in the wet than it does in the dry. You're not pulling the same lateral loads through the corners and relying so much on that downforce for Alonso, but it will not be helping his cause. That's a fact, as Kovalainen pits from the lead. Coulthard pits from 3rd place as well. Kubica gets a drive through, we think, for running into the side of Lewis Hamilton. So Fisichella takes up the lead then. Hamilton 2nd. Webber resumes, having also stopped now in 3rd.
So the pendulum swings back towards Lewis Hamilton, provided that car is not damaged after that collision by Kubica, and provided Lewis can keep it on the road, he's looking good for the victory here this afternoon if he can just keep it all together. At the moment, the crucial thing as far as he's concerned anyway is how far he is ahead of his 2 championship rivals, Fernando Alonso, who is currently in 8th place, and Kimi Raikkonen, who is currently in 7th place. Raikkonen shown as 5th now.
Raikkonen struggling in this deeper water now. We know the Ferraris have got a little bit less downforce than the McLaren, and he's beginning to struggle with the aquaplaning. I think the drivers will be on the radio complaining about this anytime soon. It is getting a bit marginal now. It's lap 40, and Fisichella still leads. He's just 3 seconds ahead though of Hamilton as we look at the damage on Alonso's car. As I say, I don't think it will affect him too badly in these conditions. Raikkonen, we believe, is coming in for a fresh set of wet tyres. Has he worn those tyres down?
2 championship rivals. You can see the amount of water that's being moved around by the tyres as they go through it. Is much more serious than it was before. Raikkonen goes for the pit lane. Alonso goes through and picks up another place, with Coulthard having made his pit stop and Kovalainen as well. That means that Raikkonen, I believe, is up in 4th place now, depending on where Fisichella emerged. Into the pits comes Raikkonen. Alonso up into 4th place then.
Well, we thought Raikkonen could go to the end. They are putting some fuel in, so they hadn't fueled him. The refueling hose is a very long time. It's only just gone on. So the refueling hose was going on as the tyres were completely finished and ready to go. But they didn't put much fuel in when they did get it on.
That was the stop of a beaten team, I'm afraid. You could tell by the body language of all concerned. Meanwhile, at the sharp end, there is Fernando Alonso. There's the Kubica drive-through penalty being served. Robert Kubica, who had dropped down anyway to 14th place, and that will take him completely out of contention for points here this afternoon. Vettel is on for a hatful. He might even get a podium if he can keep the pace up here in the Toro Rosso.
Webber's catching Hamilton. I don't think Hamilton would have let anybody through for the hell of it just to stay out of trouble, because you do not want to be in anybody's spray, as we see Yamamoto there spinning the spiker, but Webber's catching Hamilton.
Yeah, and the Renault mechanics are out for Giancarlo Fisichella, the only car standing between Lewis Hamilton and the lead being restored to him. And it looks like the Renault guys are ready for Fisichella. He pits now. Hamilton is back in the lead of the Grand Prix. 26 laps to go as we look at a replay of the local driver Sakon Yamamoto having a spin in the spiker. Hamilton leads. Mark Webber is in 2nd place. In 3rd place is Sebastian Vettel in the Toro Rosso, ahead of Alonso 4th, Antonio Liuzzi, would you believe, who was last when the cars were released by the safety car on lap 19. Antonio Liuzzi is in 5th place.
Well, we think they're the guys that fueled to the end and took that gamble very early on. But Webber's within 2 seconds of Hamilton still, and pretty handy in these conditions. And they're a further about 4 seconds ahead of Vettel. And and Yamamoto spun because he turned in with his right rear wheel completely on the curb. It will only ever spin. That's a McLaren in the wall.
We just saw a shot of Hamilton. I believe this is Alonso. It is one of the two main championship contenders. Fernando Alonso has hit the wall.
And that's in the middle of the track, down in
turn 6, isn't it? Just down here.
It's down into turn 6. He's lost it coming out of 5 and hit the wall. He never approached the wall at the turning point of 6. He's gone straight in the wall. That's critical for the World Championship. And he's hit the wall very hard. He's dropped it on the exit of 5. That's what's gone on there.
Safety car has been deployed. There's a lot of debris from that McLaren scattered all over the track, but Hamilton will be getting the message as he leads this Japanese Grand Prix. 25 laps now away from scoring 10 points that would certainly move him into a very, very strong position in the World Championship, because his main rival is out of this race, Fernando Alonso. Kimi Raikkonen is still in the hunt, but he's dropped down to 12th place now after that extra pit stop in the Ferrari. And is Alonso holding his arm? Or is he just taking his gloves off? No, he's just taking his gloves off.
Now, crucial for Hamilton. That gives him a big breathing space, providing he scores points today over Alonso going into those last 2 races. But we're 5 laps away from this reaching 75% distance, which is quite often a crucial point if they do want. That's a big accident. They do want to abandon the race. But yeah, he's aquaplaned on the exit of turn 5, and just let's see if we're going to get a replay of the early part of that. But probably still doing 140, 150 miles an hour, and of course the retardation would be virtually 0 in these conditions when you're travelling sideways and backwards.
I'll just clear one little thing up. 75% of 67 laps is 51 laps.
Sorry, my maths is not good there.
It's still got a way to go. 9 laps to go for Hamilton before he'll get maximum points from this race. But whatever happens, if he finishes it as the very jumpy looking Ron Dennis takes a big swig of water, if he finishes this one, Hamilton is definitely going to extend his lead over Alonso, and whatever happens, he's going to leave here still leading the championship over the Spaniard. Well, it's been an extraordinary first 43 laps here in Fuji, and the closing stages are upon us. We're behind the safety car for the 2nd time in this Grand Prix. As we take another look at that huge incident, Fernando Alonso hitting the wall on the run down to turn 6, which is just below our commentary position. It's just the other side of the main straight. Hamilton leads then. Webber and Vettel, an unlikely pairing in the podium positions at the moment. Bits of wall, I think, as much as anything else, scattered across the racetrack. Polystyrene and various other things built into that wall, shock absorbent materials. And there is Lewis Hamilton, there is Fernando Alonso, and well, he's trying to put a brave face on it as he climbs onto the back of the motorbike, but he knows the significance of that incident. He knows what it means to his championship situation with 2 races still to go. Still managing a wave for the crowd though, the defending world champion. Well, a difficult day for all the drivers. He's on 95 points in the World Championship. Hamilton is on 97. And if he wins this race, still a long way to go. He'll be on 107. He'll have a 12-point margin with 2 races to go.
Long way to go, yeah, this afternoon. It'll be so easy to aquaplane off this racetrack.
Well, Sebastian Vettel hasn't been hanging about in any sense of the word, and you can see he's also the fastest man through the speed trap here this afternoon. This is a drive which will have raised his stock in the Formula 1 pit lane by just a bit.
the replay then earlier on of the McLaren getting some damage before this accident when he made contact with Antonio Liuzzi, and this is a big accident. A full 720-second spin.
23 laps to go in the Japanese Grand Prix from Fuji as 3 cars come into the pits. Liuzzi, Sutil, who were 5th and 9th respectively, and also Takuma Sato, who was running in 20th. We have lost the reigning world champion Fernando Alonso from this race. He hit the wall a few laps ago, and there he is getting onto his motorbike, back of a Marshall, and just still managing a wave for the crowd, but he knows what this incident is going to mean to him and his championship hopes. He was 2 points behind Hamilton going into this race. Lewis Hamilton leads the Grand Prix here with 23 laps to go. It's been an extraordinary race that is now under a safety car after that crash from Alonso while they clear the debris, but it's also started under a safety car. The first 19 laps of the race were under the safety car. The Ferraris tried to go out on a shallow cut wet, which simply didn't work for them. They were forced to pit under the safety car and come back in for a proper wet tyre, which dropped them to the very back of the field. Raikkonen has managed to fight his way up since then and is currently in 11th place. Felipe Massa has not been, well, he's up in 6th place, having made 3 pit stops here this afternoon. The story at the front is Hamilton versus Alonso. Hamilton looking comfortable, and the conditions opened up a gap of 3 seconds over his teammate Fernando Alonso. When they made their pit stops, Alonso came out into traffic and was down in 7th place. Hamilton was able to come out in front of a big queue of cars and behind Mark Webber and Sebastian Vettel, who have undoubtedly put themselves in contention for driver of the day. They currently sit in 2nd and 3rd place. Webber 2nd and Vettel 3rd. And you can see that as the situation is at the moment, if Hamilton can finish this race where he is, he will move to 107 points, and Alonso will stay where he is on 95, and that will mean that Hamilton, with 2 races to go, will have a 12-point margin over his teammate in his quest to become the world champion in his first year of Formula One. Plenty of other things have happened. Lewis Hamilton's not had an easy run of it. He was clouted by Robert Kubica in an incident that moved him from what would have been the lead down to an aggregate 4th. Sorry, go on.
Lap cars may now overtake. Those lapped cars are Sato, Alonso, who's very much in the wall, and Wirtz, so who's out of the Grand Prix, and Davidson. So we're talking really about the 2 Super Aguris. They're the only 2 lap cars that are still running. I'll tell you the problem with this situation, James, I've had it several times, is now the pack is all grouped up again and going quite slowly, and it's raining heavily. The standing water tends to grow quite quickly and deepen, and it changes the dynamics of the racetrack. When you're circulating and the whole track is busy and the surface of the standing water just keeps getting broken and dispersed, it does help the racetrack a lot. Now you've got them all in one pack around the other side of the track, and it's at any one time, and the water just tends to get worse.
What a tense afternoon for everybody concerned. Lewis Hamilton at the front. This reminds me of the Canadian Grand Prix, his first victory this season in Formula One, where we had, I think it was 4 safety car interventions. Hamilton managed to keep his head and steer through the chaos to take his first win. This is an altogether different prospect with the rainy conditions that we have. Mark Webber and Sebastian Vettel deserve enormous credit for their performance both yesterday in qualifying, where they both got themselves solidly up the front of the grid. Mark Webber was 7th, Vettel 8th, and they are now, by virtue of having made pit stops at the right time, Webber is looking at his 2nd podium of the season, and Vettel looking at his first ever in Formula One. And boy, has Vettel stopped.
Oh, Webber's off!
Webber's off into the wall! I can't believe it!
He's aquaplaned off. Maybe he's just tried to warm his tyres up or something. Did he get anywhere near Hamilton when they were busy warming tyres or moving around the track? But somehow or other, Mark Webber, behind the safety car, has gone off far enough to hit the wall.
Vettel is now 2nd then. The 20-year-old Sebastian Vettel takes up 2nd place, with Webber having gone off into the wall.
Well, let's wait and see he hasn't just parked it. Let's wait and see he hasn't just had a problem. And where are we? Yeah, he's spun it.
Oh, Vettel has been hit.
He's been hit by Vettel, big time. Vettel is out as well. Vettel has just run, oh, the Toro Rosso hits the sister car Red Bull. Vettel has run into the back of Mark Webber while they've been warming tyres and brakes.
Can't believe it. It was headed for a fairy tale for Webber and Vettel. And I guess the guy who owns the Red Bull teams, both of them, Dietrich Mateschitz, will be watching this in Austria and will be throwing something very large and heavy at his TV screen, because he was looking at a double podium here. Engine switched off. Toro Rosso are furious. And I was just saying how high Sebastian Vettel's stock must have got. It just went down like Northern Rock stock did.
Wow. What are they doing? I mean, visibility's poor, but I suspect what happened is Webber was just warming his brakes as Vettel was warming his rear tyres, and they met in the middle. That puts Kovalainen up to second. Massa for Ferrari third, despite 3 pit stops, one of which was a drive-through. Coulthard then is fourth. Fisichella 5th, Heidfeld 6th, Raikkonen 7th, having made a bit of a surprise extra pit stop too. He's been in 3 times. Barrichello up to 8th for Honda. But how extraordinary. I wonder if we'll see another shot of that. But it looks as if it was brain fade.
So Hamilton, 47th lap of this Japanese Grand Prix. I think if you're a Japanese race fan, you not only need a lot of endurance and a lot of stamina, you also need a very good set of waterproofs, because it quite often rains over here. And the crowd that has turned up here this afternoon, a very healthy crowd it is too, has seen a truly astonishing Japanese Grand Prix, and it's not over yet. Cars maintaining a distance from each other, and it's when they try and warm the tyres up as Kovalainen pushes Hamilton, gets up alongside him. That's the fastest lap classification in this race. 1:28 was the fastest we got to at one stage, and clearly that was when it was the rain was at its lightest. It started to rain pretty heavily about 10 minutes ago, and the safety car is coming in this lap, and there is Vettel crying his eyes out in the pit box, and who can blame him? It looks very much like his mistake that smashed into the back of Webber.
Of all the cars to hit as well, it's his boss's other team. Now, I think I'd be more nervous now than any other time this afternoon if I was driving. This restart is going to be tricky. The start-finish line is a long way down the pit straight. It must be a third of a mile down there. You cannot overtake until you pass that line. We've seen Hamilton, he likes to back them all up, slow them all down, try and surprise them. I think he rather overdid it last time, if I'm honest. But there's no point playing games today. He's just simply got to get on with it. They're not allowed to overtake him anyway until they've passed the start-finish line.
Heikki Kovalainen then in the Renault, looking at his best result in Formula 1 if he can stay where he is, but he's got to worry about Felipe Massa's Ferrari behind him as Hamilton gets up alongside the safety car. Kovalainen, though, will also be conscious of the fact that he does not want to interfere in the World Championship situation, and any kind of collision with Lewis Hamilton at the restart would be very much doing that. Remember, you're not allowed to overtake until you've crossed the start-finish line, which, as Martin just said, is a long way down the pit straight. Hamilton bunches the pack up now. The second time he's done that in this Grand Prix. We're about to go green with 20 laps remaining.
Magical mystery tour this first lap will be, where will you choose your braking point for turn 1? It's still raining like crazy out there. The standing water will be deeper than before, and they're still busy just shaping up for that start. Hamilton backing them all up, then now he'll let it go.
Well, he was entitled to do that, and he got the drop coming out of the corner, got the car nice and straight before he hit the hammer. He goes across the start-finish line. He's got 19 laps separating himself from the end of this Japanese Grand Prix as Massa has a look up the inside of Kovalainen, and it looks like he's going to keep on coming as we go into the first corner. Massa, he's tucked in behind Kovalainen now, who picks his braking point neatly for the first corner. Hamilton leads. Second is Kovalainen, third is Massa, fourth is David Coulthard, fifth is Giancarlo Fisichella, then it's Heidfeld, Raikkonen 7th, and 8th Barrichello.
If you ever thought Grand Prix drivers were overpaid, change your mind right now. This is supreme sporting skill and bravery going on here this afternoon. 205 miles an hour, cannot even see your own dashboard. You're all of your sensors are in hyper mode, your eyes are on stalks, you're listening for when the guy in front lifts the throttle pedal as Ralf Schumacher exits the pits for Toyota, and Hamilton then leads Kovalainen, Massa, Wirtz is off the road for Williams. It's Rosberg, sorry, Wirtz is out of the Grand Prix, it's Rosberg dropping to the back of the field, Massa third, Coulthard fourth.
Yeah, Jenson Button, who had a good chance here this afternoon, was fourth in the train of cars when the safety car released them on lap 19 after that safety car start. Of course, he got knocked his front wing. He sees spray, but at the moment he's not seen too many racing cars because Kovalainen is 4.5 seconds behind him.
Challenging conditions, and you just wonder what experience Hamilton's got to draw on here. He doesn't have any experience to pull from in these kind of challenges and demands.
Not in a Formula One car, that's for sure. I spoke to him this morning and he was saying that this is. Mark Webber was hit up the back by Sebastian Vettel, put him out of the race. Louise Goodman has found him.
Mark just said, tell us your thoughts right now.
Well, kids, isn't it? Kids with not enough experience do a good job and they fuck it all up.
Thanks, Mark. Well, I think we'll leave it there. Apologies for that fruity language.
Well, a very angry Mark Webber. Sorry about that. Sebastian Vettel hitting him then and putting him out of a certain podium position. He was going to finish second as things stood. Vettel was going to finish third. And, well, as we saw, Vettel punted him out. There's Kubica, another bad boy here this afternoon, who smashed into the side of Lewis Hamilton earlier in this race, but didn't put him out. He's closing up on the back of teammate Heidfeld, who's we just cut to there, going through turn one. He's in 7th place. Barrichello is between them in the Honda.
So Hamilton's lead up to 5.5 seconds then, and we're only on the third flying lap after the restart. And as you corrected me, James, we're now moving towards the 75% full points scenario anyway. Even if the race does get stopped for any reason now, we're into full points. So Hamilton leads, Kovalainen second, Massa third, Coulthard still solidly fourth, but Raikkonen very close to the back of him. Then there's 7 seconds clear of Fisichella, who's sixth.
Who's that off the racetrack? It's the Antonio Liuzzi, I believe, in the Toro Rosso, who was in 10th place and still is from the looks of things. Oh no, Sutill's gone past him, so he's dropped down to 11th. Now if it finishes this way, Rubens Barrichello, who is in 8th place, will score, would you believe it, his first point of the 2007 season. It's a pretty special day today for Rubens Barrichello because he equals Michael Schumacher's total of 248 race starts. So he's now the second most experienced driver in Formula One history. And in China, obviously, he'll become clear and move 1 place clear of Schumacher. And Riccardo Patrese is the next in his sights. And next year, around about Monaco time, possibly Canada, we will see Rubens Barrichello becoming the most experienced driver ever in the history of Formula One. I think he'll be hoping he has a bit more of a competitive car to celebrate that with.
Car 22's been off the track. That's Takuma Sato. He's down in 17th place. We've still got 17 runners, amazingly. It'll be interesting to see exactly why Alonso went off. I'm pretty sure he just ran a little bit wide in 5 and caught a bit of extra water or something.
He had been off the track a couple of times, hadn't he, before that. It was a little bit like Montreal, where we saw safety cars, Hamilton leading, Alonso off the track a couple of times, eerily reminiscent of that Grand Prix. Obviously the conditions completely different here with this torrential rain, but Alonso was outstanding the last time we had a wet race, of course, at the Nürburgring, where he won, beating Felipe Massa in the very closing stages of the Grand Prix. So there is absolutely nothing wrong with Alonso as a wet weather driver. In fact, he's probably one of the very, very best out there.
Yeah, he had got damage to the side part of his car, of course, but he'd already done several laps with that damage. So,
still raining in the pit lane, Martin, not quite as hard as 5 minutes ago, but just a thought on Fernando Alonso. All the McLaren mechanics here were paying very special close attention to the tub and how damaged that McLaren was, because of course with the Chinese Grand Prix next week they will have to make a decision now to send a new tub out from Woking, fly it out straight to Shanghai. They do have a T-car sitting here in the garage which is set up for Alonso, but they will, I fancy, have to fly a new car out.
Yeah, good point, Ted, good point. So still quite a way to go in this Grand Prix. It's 2.8 miles. We've got another 14 of those laps to go, including the one that they're on now. and Hamilton's lead up to 6.8 seconds then over Kovalainen. Massa's keeping Kovalainen honest at 1.4 seconds behind him. Coulthard just 2.3 seconds down the road from Massa, with the sister fry of Raikkonen, his old teammate from McLaren, closing in on him fractions of a second at a time. Fisichella falling further and further away in 6th place. Heidfeld behind him in 7th. Barrichello, the last points place.
Ralf Schumacher. Lewis Hamilton at the front, lapping the last lap time through at 1 minute 30 flat, so he's lapping about a second a lap faster than Kovalainen, who's pursuing him, as Ralf Schumacher retires that Toyota. So it looks like Barrichello in 8th place, the only Japanese manufacturer likely to score a point here this afternoon. Toyota had a special team working specifically on setups and project, getting the car set up for this Grand Prix, and it's given them absolutely nothing. Ralf Schumacher retiring. Jarno Trulli is a very distant 14th at the moment on this track, which is owned by Toyota. On board with Felipe Massa, looking at a podium. In 3rd place, Heikki Kovalainen in the Renault is the only car separating him and the race leader Hamilton.
Very tentative in that Ferrari through the water of turns 4 and 5. Backing off and off and off the throttle. Barely needs to touch the brake pedal, I'd imagine, when he got to 6th. But you're strapped into these cars so tight. You're part of 6 seat belts holding you in the seat. You're touching the car with your feet on the pedals, your backside in the seat, and your hands on the wheel. Throw in the gyros in your head as to the feeling as Davidson's off for Super Aguri. The gyros in your head telling you when the car is sliding, and you're just living on the edge of your reactions. Massa was so cautious there. Davidson spins off from 15th position. There was a little bit of a fire going on there, apparently. We're hearing from Ted down on the in the pit lane. So unfortunately for Anthony, it's not been a good weekend here in Fuji.
So there's Massa, who remember has served a drive-through penalty in addition to everything else, because he overtook in the opening stages under the safety car, which you're not allowed to do except on the opening lap if you're slow away from your grid slot. He overtook under the safety car and had to have a drive-through penalty, so recover from that to be up in 3rd place, having made 3 pit stops here this afternoon. There is the graphic. Compared to the one of the 2 cars in front of him. It's a good effort from Felipe Massa, who of course finished 2nd a couple of weeks ago at the Belgian Grand Prix. To give you an idea of the kind of pace they're doing, Hamilton does last lap a 1:29.8, is 1.7 seconds slower than the fastest lap he's done on this race, which is on lap 27. So that's how the conditions have changed.
Right, Raikkonen's pushing like crazy to get past David Coulthard, because if he does, you can assume, if I was Ferrari, I'd then let him pass Massa as well, to give him maximum number of points to keep his World Championship hopes alive. But they can't do that while David Coulthard is in the middle of them. So Raikkonen pushing extremely hard.
Move Raikkonen up onto 90 points with Hamilton. He finishes this race where he is on 107. Still a very long shot for Raikkonen.
Yeah, but I mean, if he does do that, they'll just be saying to Felipe Massa, Kimi is behind you. They're not allowed to give him team orders, that's for sure. And so they'll have to leave the drivers to work it out for themselves. What it will have been, if it happens, will have been a conversation that took place prior to the race. But at the moment, David Coulthard driving beautifully on the same pace as leader Hamilton at the moment, very much holding his own there in 4th place, sandwiched between the 2 Ferraris, and Massa's still very close to Kovalainen too. I think David Coulthard's sitting there thinking, I actually fancy a piece of the podium. Look, Raikkonen's gone right round the outside of 5 this time though. It's where he was quicker last time, and completely surprised Coulthard there by just finding that grip around the outside. Now he brings himself into play.
And Coulthard has just set his fastest lap of the Grand Prix so far. David Coulthard, who's racing today in slightly different helmet colours. You can't really tell because the conditions are so bad, but he is actually wearing the helmet colours of Colin McRae, his great friend, the former world rally champion, who was killed in a helicopter crash a couple of weeks ago. And that's David Coulthard's tribute to him as the Ferrari snakes under acceleration. And Kimi Raikkonen now sets off after his teammate. Raikkonen up into 4th then, Massa in 3rd.
Raikkonen could get a 2nd place here, yeah. Him and Coulthard were only 2.5 seconds behind Kovalainen and Massa. So it's all to play for, isn't it? 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th there. Now look at this in the back of your picture. Raikkonen's found some confidence and grip. He tried it on the previous lap, didn't quite work. He sort of was lining himself up and completely drove around the outside there and surprised David under braking into 6th.
Great driving by Kimi Raikkonen. I mentioned before that wonderful charge he put on at Suzuka to win a couple of years ago. And we're seeing another one here this afternoon. It's been interrupted by safety cars, but he really was on it from the moment the cars were released by that initial safety car.
Oh, he's off. Raikkonen's wide. And that's where he passed Coulthard last time around. Gone very, very wide. But in this day and age, there's no gravel traps. There's simply tarmac aprons, and he's straight. Almost looked like he found more grip out of there. Might try that one again. Raikkonen pushing to the extreme. World Championship at stake, really. He wants that 2nd place.
Well, he tucks in, he's closing back up on he's closing back up on Massa. Gives you an indication of just how hard Raikkonen is pushing, just how much grip he seems to be finding in closing stages at Fuji. And you'll have noticed at the top of your screens that instead of having a lap counter, we've now got a time counter, because we've got we're only on lap 59 of 77, but we aren't going to complete the full distance. We're going to 67, sorry.
Massa is in, and what on earth can that be for? Why does he need new tyres? With it lets Raikkonen pass, but it lets several other people past as well. Ted's down there.
He needs new tyres, and he needs fuel as well. So they didn't fuel Felipe Massa towards the end earlier on in the race. Another why did they do that moment in the history of Ferrari at the Japanese Grand Prix 2007, but the new full wet tyres, and he's back out again.
That's his 4th stop, I believe. Yes, it is. 4th time through, including, I think he actually has been through at least once for a drive-through, and maybe even twice when he wasn't allowed to. But they'll be wondering where Ross Brawn is right now. If he's on a beach somewhere, because they could do with him on the pit wall. Ferrari have had a poor afternoon.
They've had a mare, as you say in football. He's down in 9th place now, Felipe Massa. They have, of course, won the Constructors' Championship by virtue of McLaren being excluded from it before the Belgian Grand Prix, if you remember, a couple of weeks ago. So whatever happens, they walk away with one championship this year, but their chances of the drivers' one receded a little bit, although Raikkonen is now in 3rd place here. Hamilton leads. Kovalainen is 11 seconds behind him. In 3rd place is Raikkonen, just 3 seconds behind his fellow Finn. And then Coulthard, who was passed by Raikkonen a few laps ago, drops to 4th. Massa drops down to
L8, and you'll not believe it. Come on, surely we must be near the end of this Grand Prix, and we're an hour and 48 into. We've got 11 minutes remaining. It's going to be nip and tuck, isn't it, between a 2-hour race and the number of laps. The number of laps are just going to win that one, aren't they?
We'll see. They're lapping in the 1 minute 31s at the moment.
Yeah, the timing's going to win it just, isn't it? Eight laps in 11 minutes. I think we're going to time out. We'll see. Depends when they start that final lap, of course, where they are exactly on the racetrack. And, of course, how quickly they're circulating towards the end of the race. Louise's fan, Nico Rosberg. Cars are spinning off, minding their own business in a straight line, and we haven't seen any of that. But very easy for us to say in a nice warm, dry commentary box up here. But you know, it's racing. You've got to take all of the elements as they come.
Yeah, we still have 15 cars circulating out there of the original 22 who took the start at the front of the queue. Here's Lewis Hamilton, who is closing in. Behind him is Kovalainen. 2 Finns look like they're occupying the podium with him if he can get to the finish. Kovalainen and Raikkonen, David Coulthard 4th, Fisichella 5th and Heidfeld 6th. Now Rubens Barrichello, who's currently lying in 7th place for Honda, I was just going to say, I wonder whether he has to pit again, and sure enough, in he comes, and well, that's really bad news for Rubens. That moves him up, moves Sutil up a place into 9th. Massa goes up into 8th.
Yes, those that possibly gambled on. Oh, and it's Raikkonen off the road yet again. Where does that put David Coulthard? Because he never seems to lose any time, does he? He just skirts around I'm sure he's going to start taking that line soon. It's just keeping him right there in the action.
Yep, still in 3rd place then. Kimi Raikkonen, and we mentioned earlier on that the Ferrari seemed to be set up for a slightly drier condition than the McLaren, so that means it's got a little bit less downforce possibly. I think it was 10 kilometres faster in a straight line yesterday in qualifying than the McLaren, so it indicated that they'd hedged their bets thinking it might be a little drier today, and they got that wrong. And clearly it's made the car very, very difficult to drive for Kimi Raikkonen as Jarno Trulli pits in with Toyota from 13th place.
Yes, I think anybody that did gamble on fueling to the end expected a much longer safety car period, and given what all the drivers are radioing in and saying, which we were hearing, it's not really, it wasn't out of the question, was it? They were all bitching about conditions at safety car speed. But anyway, the race got underway and it may have caught a few people out. Hamilton's lead on lap 62, 12.9 seconds, lapping 1.5 seconds quicker than just about anybody else out there, and many more seconds quicker than that from the midfield. Kovalainen then is second. Raikkonen still only 2 seconds behind Kovalainen. Coulthard slipping back a bit now, and but still comfortably 10 seconds clear of Fisichella in fifth.
Well, Hamilton has survived some scares this weekend. Yesterday in the first part of qualifying, with only a minute or so to go on the clock, he still hadn't set a time that would get himself through out of the first part of qualifying. He was looking as they might start 18th on the grid, but he managed to get the lap in at the very end, and then of course went on to take pole position. Earlier in this race he survived another scare when Robert Kubica was closing in on him and sideswiped him with the BMW, forcing Hamilton into a spin for places as a result of that collision with Kubica. He's now 7 minutes and 12 seconds away from seeing the checkered flag. We've got 5 laps of the Grand Prix to go, so it definitely will be timed out rather than lapped out. And there is your race leader, and he knows, and you all know at home, exactly what the next 6.5 minutes mean to him. With Alonso out of this one, with Raikkonen looking like he's going to finish in 3rd place. A very, very big day for Lewis Hamilton if he can just bring it home.
14.6 seconds clear now. You've got 2 seconds a lap in your pocket every lap, Lewis. The trouble is, if you slow down sometimes with a bit less downforce, you're likely to aquaplane even more. So you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. And Raikkonen is coming at Kovalainen. It's been a very, very brave drive from Kimi Raikkonen and a very high quality drive from Kovalainen. Coulthard still 4th, Fisichella 5th, Heidfeld 6th, Kubica 7th, Massa, despite 4 stops, or 4 times through the pits at least, is still looking like scoring a World Championship point in 8th place. I'm not sure Kovalainen's mirrors will be full of a Ferrari, even though it's right behind him, because you can see absolutely nothing behind you. Spray coming off your rear tyres simply obliterates anything in your rear vision. And maybe in a hairpin, as you turn through a hairpin, you might just catch a quick glimpse of whoever is stalking you.
5.5 minutes to go. Raikkonen's closing on Kovalainen in the closing stages here. That last lap he was a second faster than Kovalainen. He's closed up to a second now behind him. That is the top 8. Robert Kubica, despite his drive-through penalty for hitting Lewis Hamilton, is still going to score a point here at 7th. Massa, with that last-minute pit stop, drops down to 8th. More solid points here this afternoon for Heidfeld in 6th place. A terrific day for Renault, who said yesterday they'd set their cars up for the drive, but it certainly doesn't look like that today. They're both behaving themselves very, very well in these wet conditions. But Ted Kravitz has got some last-minute news for us.
Ron Dennis can't take the pressure. He's just put his head in his hands. He's on the radio to Dave Ryan, the team manager. I imagine he's asking him to get on the radio off to Charlie Whiting of the FIA, trying to persuade him to call this race to a halt because it's now raining so much heavier in the pit lane, possibly about as heavy as it has done all afternoon. A state of high tension in the garage. All the mechanics just can't take this. The MD, Jonathan Neal, pacing up and down in the back. They really want this to end right now, McLaren, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Yeah, with the tarmac, and the driver is nothing more than a passenger, even with the supreme skills of Lewis Hamilton and all of the track knowledge he's got. The track is a living thing today. There's a moving thing with this amount of rain. It's every time you come around the 2.8 miles, it's changed slightly. 14.3 seconds. He's backed off a bit now. He's now lapping and just measuring himself against the drivers behind him and minding himself. But Coulthard staying ahead of Fisichella. Fisichella 5th, Heidfeld 6th, Kubica 7th, Massa 8th. There's no real squabbles going on.
There's the graphic of who's improved off the grid. Kovalainen has made up 9 places to be second. David Coulthard using that wise old head to get himself up into 4th place. Fisichella has done well today as well. Kubica has made up a bit of ground. Massa has lost a lot of ground. Sutil has had a fine day. Look at that, making up 11 places. Not enough to get himself a point as things stand. And poor old Jenson Button, a big loser, of course, having his front wing knocked off at the start. That took away any chance of a podium here today, but Button would definitely have been a big factor and certainly could have finished second behind Hamilton today had he not knocked his front wing off at the start. Well, we saw Sebastian Vettel crying his eyes out, having made a terrible mistake, smashed into the back of Mark Webber, costing both of them a podium. The 20-year-old is now talking to Louise Goodman.
Exactly.
Well, I mean,
oh well.
Bit of water in the systems there, bit of a misfire going on for Louise. We'll try and get back to I'm desperate to know what Sebastian Vettel's got to say about that one. Hamilton's now on lap 66. There's 2 minutes 17 seconds to go. Heidfeld's misfiring as well, lapping slowly in 6th with Kubica just about. Yeah, Kubica closing in 6 seconds on this lap already. So Heidfeld looks like he might drop back just near the end of the Grand Prix. Raikkonen still chasing Kovalainen for all he's worth. What a brave driver it's been by Raikkonen. He's had so many challenges this afternoon, so many moments off the road, and still he's going for it.
Yeah, he came from the very back of the field, remember? When they went out initially on the wrong tyre, the Ferraris had to pit for the extreme wet. He was 21st at one stage of this Grand Prix, and Kimi Raikkonen is now fighting for 2nd place.
Heidfeld crawling down the pit straight here, his engine sounding particularly sick. Raikkonen's found himself some interesting lines, particularly that turn 5 where Alonso crashed, but where he passed Coulthard. There is your race leader, Lewis Hamilton, maintaining 13 seconds lead.
And he's about to start his last lap here at Fuji Motor Speedway. He is 2.85 miles away from the checkered flag as Nick Heidfeld retires the BMW from 8th place, and that moves Tonio Liuzzi in the Toro Rosso into their first point scoring position of 2007. They're going to get 1 point here this afternoon, but there is your race leader, Lewis Hamilton. The crowd here are on their feet. They've seen an absolutely scintillating race here, and Hamilton has driven amazingly well. It's not just about not making mistakes on the part of the driver. It's, as Martin said, it's about not hitting a puddle when you're just a passenger, and even nothing you could do would stop you from sliding off the road. And if you can keep your head while all those around you are losing theirs, then you will take a giant step towards the World Championship. Hamilton then halfway round the lap. He's just gone through the corner where his teammate, the reigning world champion, Fernando Alonso, crashed earlier in the Grand Prix, taking himself out of contention. He will score nothing today. Hamilton is half a lap away from 10 points, and Raikkonen wants 2 extra points for 2nd place. He's really taking it to Heikki Kovalainen in the final lap here.
That's incredible from Raikkonen. He will not give in what surely is virtually impossible conditions in the spray behind that Renault. But it's Hamilton then. What an incredible drive. If he wins the World Championship this year, he fully deserves it, just on the back of this afternoon.
He has made no mistakes. It has been one of the most difficult and treacherous Grand Prix in the history of Formula One racing. And with a single mighty blow, he halts Alonso's charge. His World Championship is now within reach. That was the drive of a champion. Lewis Hamilton wins the Japanese Grand Prix. He takes the 10 points and an enormous lead into the final 2 races. And what an absolutely sensational performance from this 22-year-old. Meanwhile, Raikkonen and there's Massa, we're on board with him, battling with Kubica over 6th place. Kovalainen has finished 2nd, Raikkonen is 3rd. Kubica and Massa are battling here. Massa has taken the place away from Kubica, and in the very corner where Kubica hit Lewis Hamilton, Kovalainen 2nd, then Raikkonen 3rd, David Coulthard's 4th, and who's going to win out of these 2?
It's got all the hallmarks of Dijon so many bloody decade to go. But it's Massa who's come out in front. What an extraordinary few corners as they were trading literally blows towards the end of the race, and it's Massa who takes 6th. Maybe the stewards will be having a look at that, but it looked pretty much 50-50 in terms of who was dishing it out there. Massa then storms through, 4 stops for him, but 6th place. Button didn't make the line. He was 10th and has stopped on the last lap.
Antonio Liuzzi picks up the final point for Toro Rosso. That's their first of this season for him, and he was dead last, of course, at the very start. But what an absolutely scintillating performance by Lewis Hamilton. We're riding on board with Heikki Kovalainen, who's delighted with his and Renault's first podium of 2007. There is a very, very emotional Ron Dennis. Well, I said he was walking in the footsteps of James Hunt, who came here in '76.
Okay guys, Lewis, just be careful, there are cars stopping around the circuit, various activities on the last lap, just be careful.
Fantastic job guys, really fantastic. So pleased with all of you, done a fantastic job. Let's take it to the next race.
Tremendous job, Lewis. So Lewis, I reckon we can now say we've ticked off driving in the wet then.
Yeah, well, that was Lewis's engineers on the radio to him. Ron, what were your words to Lewis? What was the key to victory today?
Just discipline. I mean, the opening laps, you know, you had to think, do we take a chance, feel for the end? And we just worked everything out. I mean, engineers, strategists, everybody worked so well. And Lewis just did what he had to do when he had to do it. And, you know, we had to look after the tyres because we were on one-stop strategy after the first round. So, challenging race.
And as far as the championship goes, with Fernando not scoring today?
Fernando did a very good job. You know, I don't know. I think they collided with a back marker initially and damaged his car. He was really keeping it together. I was bitterly disappointed that he didn't finish, honestly. And the thing to do is realise it's still a long way to go. 2 races, but it's going well.
Okay, very well done, Ron. Of course, James Ron won't be allowed onto the podium as part of their penalty for the recent spying row.
Yes, of course, McLaren excluded from the Constructors' Championship, so the winning constructor not allowed up on the podium, but no one's going to let that sour what has been an absolutely memorable day. There have been some great Grand Prix down the years, ones that the fans of the sport talk about for years and years. We saw one here in '76 when Hunt won the World Championship. Hamilton hasn't won the World Championship yet, but he's taken a big step closer to it. He's now 12 points clear of his teammate Fernando Alonso with 2 races to go, in China next weekend and then Interlagos, Brazil later on in October. Kovalainen in second, Raikkonen third, both heroes today, and frankly everybody out there was a hero today.
Yeah, indeed. David Coulthard will be very satisfied with that 4th place too for a challenging afternoon. Beat Fisichella in the other Renault. Massa with a bit of a drive back through the field, taking that 6th from Kubica. And classic, those last few corners, wasn't there? But this is the man of the day, no question about it.
It's right up there alongside the 93 Donington that Senna won, and many other great victories. 96 Schumacher in the rain in Spain. There's the confirmation of how things stand in the Drivers' Championship. 17 points now behind Raikkonen, with a maximum 20 available from the final 2 races. It's not over yet, as Ron Dennis said. But what an amazing day for Lewis Hamilton. So, as I say, they're all heroes today, but who's your driver of the day?
It's easy, isn't it? It's got to be Lewis Hamilton with that performance. As I say, I don't know where he draws from with he has no experience. He's leading the World Championship, leading the race in treacherous conditions, and he just kept it all together. But superb drives from everybody. Kovalainen then more than happy with that. Raikkonen pushing him so hard. And something that was delightful to see down in the Parc Ferme, Kubica and Massa shaking hands despite whacking each other all through those last few corners. Very just like a Dijon, wasn't there, with Villeneuve and Arnoux side by side, one ahead then the next one. They're shaking hands in the Parc Ferme saying, wasn't that good fun? Perfect.
There's the Constructors' Championship, no real change in anyone's positions. But when you talk about Dijon, that classic race in '79 between Arnoux and Villeneuve, and that's a piece of racing folklore, and today has joined that as a great piece of racing folklore.
Safety car, I was thinking, hey man, look, That's close that, huh? He was close to me, I was thinking, oh, I'm close to me.
Yeah, I don't know which safety car. Presumably, Lewis was talking about the safety car that came out during the race, rather than the one that actually started the race. And well, today's not a day you're going to get sweaty. You're more likely to get rusty today, aren't you? So the drivers, physically, of course, it's not that demanding for them without all the lateral loads going on in the corners. It's just mentally draining.
Oh, it's close though.
And the fans have seen a classic. They've sat there in the pouring rain all day. The hat says it. First place for Lewis Hamilton. It's his 4th victory of the season.
Safety car. Really fine. You catch him and then try to move out of the way because you don't know.
Well, do you want to make the start? Okay, so we wait.
Lucy. Yeah, I mean, I pulled over and I slowed down to accelerate. And just saw one of those.
Talking there about the incident, I think, with Kubica, where he just came in from the side and sideswiped him. One of a number of pitfalls that Hamilton has avoided today en route to victory number 4. Surely his greatest, and surely such an important one. Great victory then for Lewis Hamilton. It takes him through the 100-point barrier. One of only 7 drivers to do that in the history of Formula 1 as well.
I forgot I was commentating. I was sitting down and I started applauding him up on the podium. It was just an awesome drive.
And well done, Heikki Kovalainen. One of the great stories of 2007 is the way he's turned his season around after the things that were being said about him earlier in the year, that he might even be replaced at Renault. He's had such a strong second half of the year, and this guy has underlined his credentials as well. What a sensational performance by Kimi Räikkönen.
Very brave, wasn't it? He was not going to give up. Only one national anthem, of course, British driver, British team.
So James Hunt said to Dickie Davis he was going to get drunk after he won here in 1976. Lewis Hamilton still has work to do in this World Championship. He's proved today he doesn't do easy wins. He's survived all the scares. He takes a 12-point lead into the final 2 races. Don't miss them.
トップの方のバトルに関しては皆さんねご覧のところだと思うんですけども、やっぱり